Welcome back to another episode of Black Space Project. Well, I've got something on my mind, some information that I've been holding on to for years, and you're only going to hear it here. Okay, this also again has to do with the Boogosphere that we now have called the Boogosphere. What I've been terming and calling the Sandman drone for the longest, and I've known about and became aware of back in 2010 and did 7 years of process of elimination of trying to figure this thing out. And I've been talking about it ever since. And along the way, I have put together connections, very profound connections. And I'm going to put something out there, and maybe someone else can put together some connections as well. Back in the era of, let's say, the mid 2000s and backward, and before then, back in the era when this is a time at around 2010 where we were well into digital television transmissions. I'll say it again. Digital television transmissions. Follow me. What I'm saying. I'll keep going. I won't stop. Okay. Before the year 2000, in the 1990s, all television stations were transmitting signals at a very high power, and it was analog signals at the time. Those days, back in the 90s, and before then, there were a lot of CB radio operators that were operating here within the United States. Most of the most powerful radio stations, I'm talking about CB radio operators, that there were in America at that time was in Louisiana, New Orleans, Florida. Follow what I'm saying, pay close attention, you'll connect the dots along the way. Now, with that knowledge I just gave you, what I just said, where has tornadoes and hurricanes hit America the strongest? That's right. New Orleans, Florida. It's not just because of where it is. I have a theory it's because of what was there. I don't really have a lot of knowledge on television stations at that time in Florida, but I can imagine, and I do remember the early days of the internet where some television stations were actually received from Florida all the way in Cuba. So they had to have been broadcasting some really high power output back then, which was with an analog signal. And I can imagine between Texas and Louisiana that television stations were really strong back then. So also CB radio broadcasts from out of that area between Texas, Louisiana, and Florida, especially Louisiana, Mississippi, all those southern states across there. If anyone knows anything about CB radio, those were the most powerful transmitters out there on the CB band was from those states. What if those broadcasts were interfering with what we now call the Boogosphere? What if television stations that were broadcasting analog signals at the time, before the year 2000, were interfering with the Boogosphere? This phenomena that we notice today, that some of us can hear, some of us can sense, some of us that even talk about, this high-pitched noise that we're constantly hearing all the time. I hear it all the time. It's always there. There has been a moment a few years ago, I think it was about back in 2020, where it completely silenced. I think it was exactly 2020. It completely silenced, and I had a sense, an awareness of the very planet that we're standing on, in my relationship with my position on the planet, where I stood with the relationship of the cosmos, with the relationship of the cosmos, as if I could totally sense where I am, where space is, where the moon is, where other things in space were. I had a total sensation of it. I believe that this frequency that we're constantly hearing, this high-pitched frequency, it's not internal, of course. It's not tinnitus. No, it's not that. It's an actual sound. It's been proven. A guy on YouTube actually showed it with a, he was using a frequency. He was actually using a tablet and an app, and it was showing exactly what frequency this sound that we're hearing is at. It's at 11,000 kilohertz, around 11,000 or so kilohertz and above. But specifically at a certain range of frequencies, this frequency exists in the air all the time. And I swear personally, I can hear frequencies beyond that personally all the time, way up into the ultrasonic range. But not exactly ultrasonic, because I've personally tested with an app in the ultrasonic range and I get nothing. But the same thing that this guy showed, as far as that frequency being in the 11,000 kilohertz range, there's a certain band of frequencies. What he showed before, I've seen before on the app that I used it was a spectrum analysis app. I saw the same thing. I saw the peaks. I was actually at work. This is about, I think it was like 2016 or 2017. 2017, I believe it was. You know how they have these loudspeakers at a work site, and they're facing downwards so that the sound from the loudspeaker actually echoes down to the floor and out across the floor. Well, I placed the phone right up to this speaker, this loudspeaker, the ones that are like a megaphone, that type of speaker. And because of the way the speaker is designed, it focused sound near the center at a focal point, like a little satellite dish. When I placed my phone at that spot, I saw a complete spike at this 11,000 kilohertz frequency. So this frequency I've known about for a long time. I even utilize some counteractive frequencies or frequency to counteract its effect. It's 11,800, 11,867 kilohertz, 11,867 kilohertz, 0.00. It's the exact 180 degrees out of phase. I think I'm right on that. Anyway, that frequency cancels it out. Now back to what I was saying. I'm connecting dots. I know I'm loosely connecting it, but I'll come back to around to what I'm trying to get to. What if the hurricanes that we've experienced, like Katrina, I've noticed before Katrina, when the hurricanes came in and hit Florida and Louisiana, Mississippi, those radio stations were destroyed. The CB operator stations were destroyed. They went off the air, and they slowly, more of them began to disappear. It was not so much of the fact that that type of activity, and if you want to call it a hobby, yeah, it's a hobby, went away. It didn't really necessarily went away. Those people were flooded. What if the environmental attack was a result of the activity that was going on the radio spectrum, on the CB radio band? Constant radioactivity of high-powered 27 megahertz, 26 megahertz CB operators broadcasting. What makes me put two and two together on this is because back in, what year was that? I think it was before 2020. I had a dipole antenna outside the window. I already knew about this, what we call now the Buddha sphere, how it was radiating energy into the window, affecting me by beaming its energy at my right eye. And I had already developed an awareness of its position. I could tell when it moved left and right because I could feel the sensation on my eye. It's as if a flashlight or laser, depending on its intensity, was shining at my eye. And because of that, if I stay still, I can tell when it moves. So the dipole antenna was outside the window, transmitting at 4 watts of power with a CB radio connected to the dipole. When I keyed the mic, the position of this sphere shifted. When I unkeyed the mic, it shifted back. Actually, the keying of the microphone, the transmission, caused the sphere to shift its position suddenly. So that made me think, what if these radio stations were intentionally destroyed? These ham operators, not the ham operators, the CB operators, because those are the ones, specifically for some reason at that frequency, you'd have guys out there operating at 5,000 watts of power, or even more, and just completely just killing it. If anybody knows anything about CB radio at that time, in the 2000s and before the 2000s, you know what I mean. Channel 6 was lit. You get on there and the signals would be 20 plus 30 over. And you'd have interference all across the band. Very powerful signals. And I'm talking dozens and dozens and dozens and maybe even thousands. Especially Channel 19. Channel 19 was just it would sound like a freight train with all the transmissions that were out there. Fast forward to today, you can hardly see a truck driver talking on the CB radio. And I've noticed that. It's like everyone's gone with talking on the phone, having the headsets on, instead of talking to each other using CB radio. Which, if there's something going on in the interstate, and if there are truckers out there that are aware of an incident going on, they can slow down and cause all the other traffic to slow down and avoid a potential pileup, which we've seen pileups happen throughout the years. And I could contribute that to a lack of awareness, no communication. Back in the past, There were pileups, but it was mostly weather associated. Today, we see that with no weather association, just an event happening, and no one having any kind of warning about it because no one's talking about it. No one's able to talk about it because they're on the damn phone. So, just think about everything I've said. What if these spheres can affect the weather, have affected the weather, have caused hurricanes to destroy these CB radio station operators? And the push to go towards digital television means this, that you don't have to transmit as much power with a TV signal using a digital transmission. The frequency was changed. I don't know exactly what the frequency changed to. I know it has changed. The bandwidth, TV, television bandwidth is not the same as it used to be. The frequencies, it's been reallocated to different frequencies for television operation. And I'm sure that the power level has dropped significantly, and it's digital now. It's not analog. What if that analog transmission was interfering with the spheres, the operation of the spheres? I was watching a YouTube video. I can't remember the guy, but he talks about UFO videos all the time. I think it's okay. There's Dabu77. Am I saying that right? It's been a while since I watched them. There's a few of them on YouTube that have been talking about UFOs for a very long time. There was this one that was showing a video of the military using night vision, had a lock on something in the sky that was a huge sphere, and with the thermal imaging they could see many tiny little spheres coming out from the bottom of this thing, and they shot a rocket at it and it splat as if it was water, but they still kept coming out, one after the other, just pum, 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 being dropped and moving out across the horizon, or moving out in a particular different direction. Anyway, so these things were like being deployed from some type of mothership. And every time they shot a rocket at it, it was like a video game. That's the way it looked like. It just looked like a video game where it splat, paused for a second, and just kept spewing out little spheres. You could see the infrared imagery as it was just coming out, one by one, over and over and over again. And since then, this sound that we hear in the atmosphere has been increasing. I cannot remember a time back in the early 90s or the 80s or my childhood when I've heard this constant high-pitched squeal all the damn time. It just didn't happen until after the year. What year did it start? You know what? It was actually in 2004, around 2004. Around 2004 is when it started. And it intensified 2004, 2005, 6. That's when tendonitis was being talked about a lot. And it gave people headaches. It gave me a headache. I tried to do things to try to disrupt it. Sound blocking techniques. I even blocked the vent that pulls air out. Like if you have a restroom vent, I discovered that if I put cardboard up to it and blocked it, it wouldn't be quite so intense. It was just like it was beaming in really strongly. And it makes me wonder, television used to have this high-pitched noise that was sent out through the broadcast. I wonder if that somehow interfered with the operation of the Boogosphere, what we now call the Boogosphere. I just wonder about that. What is the connection there? It has to be some type of connection. Did it interfere with it? But I am making the assumption that those CB radio stations had a significant part, and the television stations were both broadcasting analog signals at the time, with interfering with the spheres that were present at that time. And we all can speculate that there are much more, there are a whole lot more, there are many more of them now than there used to be in our skies. And now it decides to show itself. There are no more analog broadcasts that are television anymore in the United States. The level of the number of CB operators has diminished quite a lot in Louisiana, in Mississippi, the southern states, Florida, Texas. They're still out there, but not like it used to be. So, with that in mind, and if our transmissions were the result of interference for these spheres, I'm just thinking, did it cause the hurricanes to wipe this out? Did some type of psychological manipulation of the electronics industry, the trend that we're experiencing as far as the modernization of television itself going over to digital? Because I'll say this, if anyone out there can remember the analog HDTV television sets that were put out, they were picture tube television with a wide screen. Does anyone remember how sharp that video was? It was extremely sharp, extremely clear, extremely detailed. And I'm talking about the early, this was like, I remember seeing it on Jay Leno. It was like 1999 or the year 2000. It was so sharp and clear. The screen was much wider than the ordinary television set at that time. And then all of a sudden they hit us with these plasma TVs, and the definition was not good at all. The selling point was that it was a bigger TV. That's all. But the pixel quality was trash. It was simple trash. The only selling point is a bigger TV, and it's a flat screen. Flat screen this, flat screen that, trash quality video. But we accepted it because we wanted a bigger screen. And it's plasma. So, and then those TVs went away. I just want to put that out there. It's something I noticed and something that somebody had to say something about. And it seems like only I would have said it. And I'm saying it. That our activity with transmitting those signals had an effect. And now it's gone because of the hurricanes, because of the change in television. Yeah, we modernized, but the televisions that we had, the high definition televisions that we had, the picture tube, it was phenomenally, it was epic. It was sharp. It was so clear. Why was it abandoned so quickly? You're going to talk costs, you're going to talk materials, everyone wanted a bigger screen. But at the time, it was superior. You didn't need to have, if we went bigger, you couldn't have gone bigger with a picture tube, of course. But if anyone knows what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. It's just something to mention. It seems like with every advancement, something's taken away and forgotten. With every advancement, we're given something and it's taken away. My case in point, DVDs, CDs. You're given something and then it's taken away. Yeah, I can go on and on about that, but I won't right now. Thanks for watching and listening to another episode of Black Space Project. I really wanted to put this video out here before I forgot or just felt like I didn't feel like doing it. That's another thing. If you're a content creator and you have an idea and you want to make a video just all of a sudden, go ahead and do it, because there seems to be an influence out here that's influencing or manipulating people's thoughts. If I had said that back in 2020 and before then, the conspiracy theorists would have jumped on board with, somebody's crazy or mental this, mental that. No one's saying that kind of stuff anymore. Everyone knows that your phone is listening to what you're saying and shows you what you're saying on ads. And we also know that the phone is tapping into what we're thinking. So, yeah, there seems to be an influence with when you're thinking of something, somehow you're later discouraged from doing whatever or acting on whatever you're thinking about. Let that sink in. Has that been happening to you? Comment below. So if you have an idea, put it out there. Hit record. Talk about it. This is one of the things I wanted to talk about, and I wanted to share it with everyone. Thanks for watching another episode of Black Space Project North America. Until next time.